Mr. Cummings, you're welcome to the media, and we'd like to start off by asking you about, as chairman of the collaborating political parties, what is your position on the incident in Gbarpolu County as it is right now?
Yeah, let me start by saying, first of all, thanks to all of you for your presence here today. I also want to thank the press for calling attention to this issue. But the situation in Gbarpolu is unacceptable. We call for the immediate release, the immediate and unconditional release of the Secretary General of the CPP, Councillor Aloysius Stowe. He and his team were unlawfully detained for 48 hours, were not charged, were eventually charged with, erroneously, with espionage, which actually makes no sense, it's silly. Were moved from Norma to Gbarpolu and now in Monrovia at the National Police Headquarters. So we call for his immediate release. The situation around the elections in Gbarpolu should not proceed under the current conditions. Those elections, the rerun, if you will, should only happen when the environment is open and safe for residents to vote. The intimidation by the National Police, by the NSA operatives should cease and desist, so that citizens of that area, that region, can freely and fairly vote. So we condemn what happened there, and we call for the immediate and unconditional release of Councillor Aloysius Stowe, the Secretary General of the CPP and of the ANC.
There are some who are claiming that this is being orchestrated by some big hands in government. Do you share that belief?
I'm careful in my choice of words and in repeating unsubstantiated allegations, but we have heard those allegations. I will be very concerned if it's true. It may be, but I sincerely hope that is not the case, that there is not undue interference in this elections process. And so I think I should leave that comment there, because again, as a leader, it's very important that I'm careful in my choice of words.
In the wake of all of this, the NDC is bound on going ahead with elections today. As chairman of the collaborating political parties, and we've been told that this candidate is a member of the ANC. What will you say to NDC, to the National Elections Commission?
Well, the candidate was a member of the ANC. She left the ANC, she resigned, went through the CPP process. The ALP nominated the candidate to run in Gbarpolu. She ran as an independent, but she is a former ANC partisan. We are actively involved as the CPP, as the ANC, because the CPP candidate, Mr. Zina, is supporting Boto Kana, the independent candidate. We're also involved because this is a female candidate. And as you know, today we only have one female senator, Honorable Yomna Kanga Lawrence, in the Senate. And of course, she won her re-election in Grand Bassa. And we are bothered by the fact that officials, this government appears to be fighting the will of the people to have more women in the legislature. I want to similarly talk about NIMA, but to stick with Gbarpolu, we are concerned about that issue. We do not believe the elections should proceed today. We've gotten information that it will not, and we hope that is the case. And as I mentioned earlier, these elections should only happen when the environment is safe for people to freely vote, unintimidated, all citizens of the area. We have reliable information that some citizens were deprived from entering the town to vote, which is unacceptable. Voto Kana was in the lead. Most citizens in that area, we believe, are our supporters. And nothing should be done to deprive this woman of winning Gbarpolu and of going to the legislature as a senator, and to have another woman in the Senate representing the people of Gbarpolu on behalf of the Liberian people.
Yeah, my name is Sherman from KMTV. I'm concerned about your steward that is on a political custody or on any investigation. Have you had any idea that this person that is in question has any charges linked against him based upon what happened?
I do not have, as of now, exactly what is being charged, what is being alleged on Councilor Code. And this is another issue that we have not been able to get in contact with him. He was for a very long time deprived of his right to make contact with the people outside. What we do know is that he is now being held at the police station. We were told that he would be released today to his lawyers, but as of now, we are not aware that that has happened. And so we have lawyers at the National Police Station trying to secure his release.
You briefly mentioned the situation in Nimba, that is with Madam Edith Gonglo boy. What do you know so far about what has happened?
So again, this is another situation where the CPP candidate, who happens to be a woman, Madam Edith Gonglo, where it appears to be deprived of a victory. Lots of irregularities occurred during the Nima elections. We are in the process of documenting those. I believe there's a hearing this morning on her situation, and we are hopeful that the National Elections Commission does the right thing and does not deprive the CPP, does not deprive the citizens of Nimba, does not deprive Madam Gonglo of her deserved victory in the Nima senatorial elections. Another opportunity to have another female voice in the Liberian Senate. We are actively supporting that effort and fully represented at her hearing this morning.
Mr. Cummings, many believe that, political pundits believe that this situation now in Nimba should not be, if or had the CPP now gone to the elections in splendid groups, meaning candidates left based on their own personal reasons from the CPP and desire to contest, and this to some extent has affected what should have been a landslide victory for Edith.
I don't know what the basis of those allegations are. In many counties, people left various parties and contested. That situation is not unique to Nimba. That situation happened in Cape Mount, it happened in Bong County, it happened in Bomi, and it happened in Grand Juda. Look, our democracy is evolving. Our democracy is still young. If each constituent CPP party had stayed independent, we would have had 60 people running in this by-election. One from each party. 15 times 4 is 60. The fact is the CPP only officially ran 15 people. So, quote-unquote, 45 people were, quote-unquote, deprived of their desire to run. Some of those people decided to leave the parties and run as independents. And Nimba was not a unique situation. So why Nimba is being pointed out only, I don't know. It's an allegation, it's an assertion. I don't know the basis of that. But unfortunately, the situation happened in the other counties I mentioned and others. But our democracy is evolving. Over time, there will be more discipline. This is the first time the CPP has gone to an election. And so we should not be surprised that some of these things happen. But over time, there will be more discipline and we will get better as a collaboration.
I've heard many of your stewards giving a little bit of credit when it comes to the conduct of this election, despite the entire process hasn't come to an end. And your voice seems to be not favorable in the kind of way this process is going. Do you have something to say about that?
I'm not sure I understand the question though.
I've heard a couple of your stewards from the CPP who have held the conduct of the election is peaceful and fair and transparent, one word or other, quote unquote. But your voice doesn't sound favorable this morning. Do you have something to that?
Well, yes. Let me say this. Parts of the elections appear to have gone well, but there's still opportunities to improve the process. So the situation in Lima is an example of where the process has not gone well. The situation in Gbarpolu is another example of where the situation has not gone well. So yes, the outcomes in some parts of the country went well, and we should acknowledge that, but there's still opportunities to do better, to improve. And so we need to be balanced in how we talk about the outcome of this election. Let me also say though, that we are not going to relent in our pursuit of trying to improve our democracy, improve our electoral process. We are still going to focus on the whole voter roll issue. We went to these elections with protesting the voter roll. We did not want to stop or not participate in the election because we did not want to cause a constitutional crisis. So we went through this election. But there's still opportunities to improve that whole process. You know, we need to go to a national identification process or biometric process so that we can improve the technology around elections, we can improve the voter registration process. And so as we go into 2021, we will start now to talk about what needs to be done to improve those processes. So when we get to 2023, we can have made even more progress than what was made in this last election. So we are happy that in parts of the country the elections went well, in other parts it did not, and we'll continue to pressure us as a people to keep improving. You know, we don't want to accept mediocrity. We want to declare the victory flag too prematurely. Liberia will not change unless we continue to push each other to improve our processes, to improve our democracy, and again, we make no apologies for doing that.
So in following to that, sir, in pursuit of what you just said, is the CPP leaving room for security apparatus to play its part in terms of what have happened in Gbarpolu and that of Lima County?
We are leaving no stone unturned to make sure we call out any transgressions, any irregularities that happens by any part of the government, whether it's the NEC, security operators, etc. And so we will make sure we will do our own investigation of actually what happened in Gbarpolu. Some of the team members who went actually made videos of some of the situations, so we'll investigate all of that and we'll make it public. And to the extent security officers, NSA, immigration, police misbehave, and to the extent we have proof of that, we will lay bare the proof and make sure people understand exactly what happened as a means of continuing to put pressure on our government to make sure they are free, fair, and transparent elections.
I want to say your investigation may not be the exact one.
We will disclose whatever we find out. We will be open, transparent, and disclose whatever we find out.
Ms. Cummings, sir, your last press conference before the December 8th elections, you called on your supporters not to vote in the referendum. And now it has come out to the point where the issue about results from the referendum is becoming of concern. And as it is, from results from the NEC, yes vote is being, dominant. Most of the propositions have majority votes yes. What do you think is going to end up as chairman of the CPP when you have told your people not to vote into it?
We made a decision as a CPP and with many other opposition parties that the whole process around the referendum was not being conducted per the Constitution. We actually went to court on that basis and got a ruling from the court. So we wanted to be very consistent in not participating in a process that we said was not being done constitutionally. We also said that it's important that as a country, as a people, if things are not done right, we should not support it and participate in those things. Now we need to investigate what the outcome is. we need to understand if the outcome is indeed yes. And so give us time to understand exactly what happened, how many votes were yes, how many votes were no, how many votes were not valid. And so we're looking at all of that, and then we'll come up with a statement with regards to the referendum.
Finally, from me, sir, are you satisfied with the output of the CPP in the December election?
I think it is very clear that the opposition did very well in this election, and the CPP won the most seats. The CPP won 6 seats outright in these elections. And we think we will win more, depending on what happens in Nimba. And so from that perspective, we're happy. We also know that independents also did well in this election. And based on our count, the CDC only won 3 seats, 3 out of 15. Again, there's some contestation, as I mentioned, in Nimba. Gbarpolu still needs to wrap up, but there we think if it is unencumbered, if it's unfettered, the independent voter will also win in Gbarpolu. So yes, for the first time going out as a collaboration, the CPP did well.
Is that an encouragement to stick together?
Absolutely, it's an encouragement
to stick together
for us to stick together. It's an encouragement to the Liberian people. But let me also say, though, what our senators and the opposition senators do starting in January, it will be the real test. Yes, we are happy, we feel good about this victory. We feel good about our leadership of the CPP up to this point and achieving this victory. But it's just the beginning. If the senators that were elected go into the Senate and start to behave like some of the other senators, shame on them, shame on us as a CPP. The Liberian people will therefore not support us going forward. And so we're determined to work with them, to have a legislative agenda, to work on getting the leadership of the Senate, and so that we can begin to propose legislation in the interest of the Liberian people. The Liberian people don't want to see what we're against. We want to see what we're for. And so we're going to be working collaboratively with the senators that won, with some of the senators who are already there and want to do the right thing for our country, to begin to propose legislation so we can begin to provide the right check and balance in the legislation to the executive branch. So the work just begins. The victory, the celebration should be very brief. We got so much work to do to move our country forward. And so I want to focus on the way forward and the work that needs to do to further instill confidence in the Liberian people in the CPP.
So finally, for my answer, there are a series of recommendations, laws. I can recall a lot of economic policies and a lot of things that you prefer through the media to the government of Liberia. Now that the election is favorable for the CPP, will you still have in mind continuing with those recommendations? And if yes, will you involve those candidates who have come victorious on your watch?
Yes, that's why I just said we need a legislative agenda. We need to be proposing legislation on behalf of the Liberian people. And some of that legislation will be recommendations around the economy of our country. So absolutely. And this is what Liberians want. Again, not just what we're against, but what we're for. And so we will be working with the CPP caucus, both in the House and in the Senate, with other independents and like-minded senators and representatives to begin to propose legislation on behalf of Liberian people, legislation around governance, around the economy, etc. So the answer is absolutely yes.
So, to end up, would you like to reflect on the Gbarpolu situation as closing?
I would like to end on 3 things. One, on the Gbarpolu situation, and 2 things there. One is the immediate release of Councillor Aloysius to the Secretary General of the CPP, who we believe was illegally arrested and detained. He needs to be released immediately. And we we protest vehemently against his treatment and what happened there. Secondly, with regards to Gbarpolu, we call on the National Elections Commission, we call on the government to make sure that rerun only happens when the environment is unencumbered, when it's safe for all citizens in that area to vote. Nobody should be barred who legitimately can vote in Norman Town in Gbarpolu. That is a must and a call, and we'll make sure our partisans in that area are allowed to vote freely, because if that happens, we believe Botokana will win in Gbarpolu. Second message is around NIMBA. The hearing is taking place today. We call on the National Elections Commission and government to make sure that the NIMBA election again is unencumbered, and that the will of the Liberians is reflected in the outcome of that election. And thirdly, we want to thank the Liberian people for what has mostly been peaceful elections. We want to thank the Liberian people for their confidence in the CPP and in the opposition. We thank you. We acknowledge your message to us. We acknowledge your confidence in us, and we will work hard to support and make sure your confidence reports in us is well-founded. So thank you all, and thanks for the support of the media to call attention to the situation in Gbarpolu. Thank you very much.